Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Bird, and this is Encouragement Corner. And I have a very special guest with me today that I think is going to bring a lot of hope and some contagious enthusiasm and optimism and joy to you. She was not born that way, but she has grown that way. And so today she's going to share with us a little bit about her journey into that, because I think we could all use a little more of that. And, when we look around the world, we know we all need a bit more of that. So hopefully this gets spread out all over the place. So Teemaree, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us so much today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really do appreciate this opportunity so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, we haven't known each other very long and never met in person, actually, but I've read on your Amazon page and on your website and different things about you, and I've been in the groups with you, and I know just this radiant enthusiasm and joy that you have, and it really is contagious. It's hard to be around that kind of optimism and not get more optimistic yourself. So I just wanted to invite you just to, we don't have a really structured show today, but I just wanted to invite you to kind of share your journey, where you came from, and how things have changed and how you've grown, and that brought you to where you are now. And then also, I'll share your links in the description on the YouTube, so that other people who would like you to help lead them forward on their journey can get in touch with you to do that also. So please, I'll stop talking now and turn the floor over to you, and just let you share about your story.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And so my name is Teemaree. I am a life, health, and spiritual coach. I'm an author, and I also offer products so people can feel empowered and make changes in their life as easy as possible. And you're absolutely right. It was not always this way. As a matter of fact, I have on a number of my bios, depending where you find me, that I've been coaching all my life. And that is not an exaggeration. I really did have a rough start as a child at around 9 years old. I was the woman of the house, the one to take care of, clean, do, walk myself home. And I've grown into a place to understand that that was a very hurtful time. My mother left myself, my brothers, and my dad, moved to another country. This all happened abruptly a year after they had divorced. And my father had some very, very deep issues. He had a drug and alcohol problem. And so I was the oldest child. And there were a number of things happening there. Even before that time, I inherently understood my mother's conflict. And so, oddly enough, even though I deeply missed her and was hurt by her very immediate and abrupt absence, there was something inside of me that kind of was understood in a way. So, needless to say, this huge life event, I bring it up even though it's so far in my past, because it really was my trial by fire. That was the beginning of a number of things that have evolved into my coaching method, to my belief system, to what I have proven over and over again. So if you are someone that is currently in a situation that has happened to you, it is not your fault. It is not something that you called upon yourself or have any control over. I understand. I understand, and I feel your pain because I know what that's like. And so when that happened, the first set of things that came into play, and I think most of us can relate to, is there's a survivor instinct sometimes that will just kick in. And so this is something that can be likened to that adrenaline, that kind of like knee jerk sensation of like, I've got to get through this. And of course, now I have three brothers. Two of them are, we have the same parents, and one has a different mother, but we share the same father. Now, with my two biological brothers, and I'm sure many of you who have also have siblings, we can grow up in the same home and have relatively the same experiences, and yet we do not have the same experiences. So if you have found yourself in a thing that has happened to you and that survivor instinct does not come to you right away, there is hope. And you can also find tools. So, what I hope to share with you today is a little bit, not just of my story, but also how we're going to talk a little bit about what might just kick in, what you can access practically. And there's also a whole beautiful, phenomenal spiritual component that can get us through truly, miraculously, amazingly. So, at 9 years old, that was my life. It was, I'm the oldest girl. I'm the only girl in the house. And, my dad is working and then doing his thing. And so I'm taking care of everything. And so for many years, uh, that was my life. And it was a kind of knee jerk automatic reaction to do the best I could, to be the best I could, to just make it somehow. At 15, I became pregnant with my first child. So then I went from playing house to really being a mother. And so then it was really serious. So by 16, I was out of my home and raising my daughter. And then I also had a son. And so, yes, I understand what it's like to need, I understand what it's like to feel totally unseen. Um, I understand what it is like to be abandoned, to be left alone, to be um, left alone, sometimes physically and sometimes, which I feel sometimes may be worse, emotionally. And during that time, at the time, it felt automatic. It felt like I was just going, moving. Brute force is all I can liken it with, because it was just a series of actions. And yet there was a whole spiritual component happening. There was grace. There was certainly, because as I look back now, I say, how did I do those things? I was just a child. So it kicked off with that. My initial experiences with coaching, helping, it was birthed out of a deep need that I personally had to literally get out of here, get out of this hard life, get out of not having enough, get out of feeling alone, get out of wondering if anybody will love me or want me or take care of me, etc. So these are deep things, but that was the initial impulse. And also, because somehow, even at a young age, I was treated like an adult and given freedoms like an adult would have, I also found myself kind of counseling adults even at that age, where, like, I don't know, it was really strange, but I'd be asked questions or hear adults share their problems. And so that was the beginning. So the first thing I would share is that if you're listening to this and you have something going on in your life that you feel you've been thrust into, the first thing that you can know is that there is something natural within us that can help us. So sometimes when we feel completely down and out, emotionally or physically, or just because circumstances are just feeling too much, there is a natural thing within us that can help us. So that is there. And we do all have that desire, that sensation to want more, can pull us through sometimes. And in the beginning, that's what that was. So fast forward, that's kind of like the foundation. But that spawned off, and that's why I was going to say, and I hadn't. I don't in any way want to villainize my parents. I don't in any way want to, and I know this might seem, depending on where you might be in your situation, it's very challenging for us to see the light when bad things happen, when people die, or when people leave us, or when people do us wrong or don't show up for us, it hurts because we're human and because we love them or we wanted them. And I was hurt for a long time by the circumstances around my childhood. But throughout all these years, I've been able to see that they are a gift to me.
Wow.
Because they, without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. Without them, I wouldn't have thought like I did. Without them, I wouldn't have sought the truth. Without them, I wouldn't have been seeking for a greater good, for God, for the answers to life's questions, for the power to get the best I can right now, even if circumstances say I can't. So everything that I have to share with you was birthed out of those experiences. So as much as I wish I could say that, I have my family around me and they're at everything I do and they just are, I don't have that to this day, but they are a blessing to me because they essentially were the recipe, the building blocks that caused me to then have these tools to share with others and help people break free from sometimes very hard things, very hard things. So, yes.
Well, just as I'm listening to that, the thing that comes to mind is that there was the movie back in the day, you probably remember with Russell Crowe, called A Beautiful Mind. And I think that's just like an amazingly beautiful mindset, uh, to think back on these difficulties and these severe challenges, and to be thankful for the people for being there, because without those, it wouldn't have. And you mentioned desire in all of us. And I know that comes from the Latin word desire, to give birth to, and so that gave birth to something, that situation that they created, even though it wasn't a great creation on their part. That's not the most desirable thing, but it gave birth to something else in you that pushed you forward to something that was actually greater. And I remember hearing a sermon one time called "Where Would You Be Without Your Judas?" And it's like, what Christ would not have fulfilled his purpose and his destiny in redeeming us without Judas's betrayal. So even those greatest difficulties that come to us can be transformed. So wow, what a testament to the transformative power of those situations. But I wanted to ask you something else that you kind of indirectly mentioned, but that was, at 9 years old, being the oldest child in the family and kind of having to care for the family, and then at 15 having your own child that you had to care for. And I see so many people, because I work a lot in healthcare, and I see so many people who are these caregiver personalities. They're deeply empathetic, and they've just always been in that caregiver role, and it's hard for them to receive the care that they need. You know, it,
Oh my gosh.
and so it's like, I call it the demon of the caregiver. It always says never enough. You've never done enough. There's just almost 8 billion people in the world, and all of them that I know need something, and it's your job to go do them.
Yeah.
To go meet the needs. And so, how do you what has transpired in your thinking on that that's allowed you to get what you need rather than just caring for everybody in the world?
Yes, yes, yes. So you're spot on with a few things. The Judas thing, I have to just go back to that just because I really felt that you spoke a word in that moment. And it's absolutely true. And so I hope that whoever sees this, if they have something that happened to them and they're feeling like, oh my gosh, that's kind of like, because those things usually we look at as terrible, as bad, as like, we don't see them as the gifts. Those are the gifts. So I just had to say that real quick. Those are the gifts. So your trial is your gift. And in regards to the caregiver thing, yes, yes, yes. So in my personal experience, what was happening is, because you see, and everyone is different. Okay. So I don't ever want to say that my experience is what others that have this feel, because we are all unique and we all have different things. And and perspectives and things we kind of reflect out, or reasons why we do things. In my instance, what I have done to help, and it's part of what I enjoy, it's an aspect of what I enjoy helping people with my coaching. I'm a big believer of personal freedom, just because I believe that so many things stem from that. There are so many of us that aren't fulfilling our gifts because we just don't feel we're free to do so. We either don't feel we have the money or the time or the support, etc. Right? So with the caregiving thing, what had started off with me was, it started off with survivor mode. Like, I have to do this. It just has to get done. And then it merged into a thing that I felt I needed to do to be hopefully worthy of anything. Like, I need to have a purpose. I need to be, there was a sense of like need coming out of that for me. And so as I continued to and seek out coaching, seek out deeper learning about the self, about spirit, about God, about our psychology, about these things that drive us, and why, um, and how to break free, I realized that a great way that we can break that, as a caregiver, you have a beautiful gift to provide that care, to provide that love, to provide that goodness that is doing a beautiful service in the world. However, you need to be able to be filled up. You need to be able to receive. And so part of doing that, there's two ways that I'd like to share. One requires a little bit of introspection, and that is just, how worthy do you feel you are? How worthy do you feel you are? And that's big, because sometimes we feel like no one can do it like us, which is a little bit too much to one side. And then sometimes we feel like we're not worth the trouble, which is also too far on the spectrum. So we're hoping to arrive at a central balance where we can see that we have worth, right? And then another thing that we can enjoy, and this is more just a practical, and you can play a game with this, and that is simply, I call it the simply say thank you. And what I mean by this, okay, and because some of us can't even accept a compliment. Okay. So whether it's a compliment or a gift, or someone doing us a favor or helping us out. Oh, would you like me to get that bag for you? Thank you. Oh, you look beautiful today. Thank you. And you just even if your mouth makes a funny thing because you're ready to protest no or grab it yourself, you just thank you. And soon you'll find that you're working the muscle practically to allow yourself, because I'm telling you, it is very true. It's an interesting transition that needs to be made. And especially in my case, I felt burned. I felt burned in that emotionally, I honestly believed I can't count on people. So number one, I'm not going to ask for help because that's way too vulnerable, too scary to even ask. And number two, they're not going to come through for me, and that's going to hurt me. So I'm not going to allow myself to receive any. And it was a series of things, but asking ourselves if we're worthy helps, because we could find where we're at and try to find that middle balance, right? And the thank you exercise helps, because it literally just allows it to happen and we get out of our own way. So, and it's a fun game you can play. You can say, okay, can I say, 3 thank yous today? It's a way to bring joy into it.
Yeah, I love that. I love the thank you exercise. It reminds me of a boss that I used to have years ago. Actually, I just messaged him before we got on, and we were talking about gift giving. And I said, all these people are like wanting to give gifts at the holidays and birthday and whatnot, and I just am not in a position to reciprocate. I said, what do you do when they do that? He said, I say thank you. So it really works. It really works. So, well, Teemaree, well, let me ask you this on the question of worth. And I know that when really difficult, challenging things happen, it can cause us to really question God. and go, well, God, if you love me as much as you say you do, and I'm worth as much as you say I am, then what gives? What am I missing here? Why are you letting these things happen? Like Joseph, being sold as a slave and thrown in prison, and all, what's going on now? Eventually, God got him out of prison, and he saved two countries in one afternoon, and ended up in ruling the land. But that wasn't visible at first, except through faith and the vision that he had. So what how did you used to see your worth? What was it based on? And then how did that change with God in the equation? How do you see that now when you look at how he actually thinks about you?
Oh my goodness. So initially, I didn't feel it was a dual experience for me. So what I mean by that is initially I didn't feel that I had worth when it came to my relation to other people because my family experience, I mean, if your own parents, right? I mean, how could I calculate anything else? Maybe I could, but for me, that was just, I didn't feel that in relation to other people that I had worth. Now, inside of me, I did have a sense that I was worth something and that I wanted something better. So there was a dual experience there that was constantly in conflict around, I feel like I want more. I feel like I can have more. I feel like I can get better. I feel like I'm smart and I have something to give. But why don't they like me, want me, accept me, invite me, care for me, whatever, insert the thing there. So that's also part of, remember, at a young age, I had full dominion over what I could do. I could leave the house, I could stay out late, I could do kind of what I wanted. And so, as a matter of fact, I kind of was looked to run things and take care of things. So I really had I had no rules really. And so what was cool about that is from a young age, I would walk myself to different churches because I wanted to find God. So I'm like, okay, because even that now, um, technically, because I know what you're born into is a thing. So technically, I was born into a Catholic family, but growing up, there was no church experience really. My grandmother on my father's side would occasionally, when we were with her, take us to a Catholic church, which felt very, very foreign. And what I mean by that is those experiences at that time, what are they talking about? Oh, we stand up now, we sit down now. I think we sing. Where's the book? It just didn't feel, I hadn't landed in the experience yet. And I also, from that young age, felt a conflict around what I felt at the church and what I thought God might be about. So I was interested in learning what is God? Where is God? um, you know, what's happening? So I started to walk to various churches and just kind of see and sit and listen. And, you know, it was a wonderful experience. And so that walk continued on throughout the years, on and off, going to different churches. So Baptist, Christian, um, Catholic, uh, I actually did take a few meetings with Jehovah Witnesses that arrived. Why not? What do they got to say? What are you about? Um, there was one time I even went to go and see what was, I forget what it's called. It's a type of Buddhism where you chant to a scroll. So, various, let's see what's happening. And questioning, praying, uh, what I was starting to discover. And so that was happening throughout my life, off and on. And then I landed and really went headfirst for a series of like six to 8 years of deep spiritual study. Um, and that just changed my whole world. And here's why. God's ways are not our ways. And I know that's a church cliche, but it's actually really true. Why why didn't I have a traditional parental upbringing? That hurts. I don't want that. I want my parents to love me, forget about it. I want them to give me everything that I desire. I want them to, drive me everywhere. You know what I mean? We have these fantasies, right? And then fast forward, um, I became a mother at 15, as I shared, and right away I got pregnant again after having my first daughter and realizing what that really was about. Because oddly enough, even though I was 15, I really wanted her. Um, and I wasn't trying for her. But once I knew I was pregnant, I really wanted her. However, my boyfriend at the time, who I thought we'd be together forever and then beyond, he was my first experience, and I loved him, and I thought that was it. And shortly after she was born, I was really thrust into kind of everything. And he was still getting to be a kid. So I knew I didn't want to have any more children at that time. I did not want to. And when I got pregnant again, I wanted to have an abortion. And I share this with you because the series of events that followed, um, whew, it was a doozy. Um, I didn't want to have the baby, and everyone around me at the time, my boyfriend's family, and well, my dad was kind of ambiguous, but the people around me at the time um, said that that was wrong, that it was wrong to have an abortion, and that I should not do that, and that it's not pleasing to God, and they said that they would be there for me and that they would help me out, and I really didn't want to do it, but I conceded. I conceded and I said, okay, I don't want to not please God. I love God. And if you're going to help me, then I thought about how easy my pregnancy with my daughter was. And then that pregnancy turned out to be life-threatening for me. I had a condition called placenta previa, which means the placenta is basically over the opening. And so anything when you're standing, just the sheer gravity as a child gets older can literally like cause the baby to be birthed very, very early. And a lot of things happen. So I was relegated to bed rest, the whole 9 yards. So I went from not wanting him to wanting nothing but him, because now we're in this alone together. We were going through a thing. So long story short, I give birth to my son. He's very ill. And he dies after a few months. Now, if you want to tell me that, what the are you doing, God?
Yeah.
Oh my. I was heartbroken and furious and devastated. And because I'd been let down now by by the people who all promised, by the experience, and now I don't even get to keep the kid. What? No way. What kind of God is this? I can't even. And so hopefully those of you that are seeing this, or I hope that depending on your age, you are at a space where you can understand that the best relationships are relationships that have been tested and pass the deep disappointment phase. Because boy, was I mad at God. And I actually had a spell where I acted like it. And the reason why I bring that up is because it too is a key point in my relationship with God. As time has elapsed, and as I saw, because usually when we're angry at God, inadvertently, we end up hurting ourselves. And I've done some thought around this. I think because deep down inside of us, even if we don't believe that God exists, we believe that something higher lives within us. Many of us, when we're deeply, deeply hurt, many of us, we end up doing what? Taking drugs or being bad to ourselves or being promiscuous or putting ourselves in situations that ultimately harm us. It harms the house. And I think that's because deep down inside, we understand that something greater is there. And so I had my spell doing that. Now, I can tell you with great assurity that as I was acting out, I wake up one morning to a series of pains I haven't felt before. So serious, I go to the doctor, and that very same morning, I give birth to a son that I had no idea I was pregnant with. Oh, the Lord's ways are not our ways, my friends. We have no idea. Now, my son that is alive, Christian is his name. He is my miracle. He is my miracle because his arrival truly, God restores. God will restore anything that we've thought we've lost and greater. My son Christian was born 3 months premature, like my son that passed away. His name was Richard. But my son Christian was strong. He survived being preterm. He survived no prenatal care. He survived the fact I didn't even know I was pregnant with him. He is strong and brilliant and empathetic and kind. And he was just like, here you go. So, and same thing like with my parents. Listen, I would have loved if I wrote my own story, I would have written a story where my parents loved me and they let me go to camp like I wanted. They did all the things. But guess what? What I got is better than what I would have asked for. Because I know the deep sensation of real love that lasts. I know God's really there. I've been given gifts that I can share with the world. And if I would have had all of that, I probably would not have what I have now. I can testify to God's goodness because I've seen it over and over again. God took me from a place to where I thought nobody loves me, not even my family. I have no one. I have an amazing husband who is my best friend and my partner and my soulmate, and he has been there. We are 20 years plus deep. I know real love. I know real friendship. I lost my son and was angry and devastated, and I couldn't believe it. But now I have a son. And quite frankly, my son that is here and that is, he doesn't require of me what my first son might have for the rest of his life. You see, God's ways are not our ways. And so things can devastate us and hurt us. I have tons of testimonies. Oh, we don't even get to the financial testimonies, because when you are wanting to build a life out of helping others and being vulnerable, you want a good roller coaster? Get on that one.
Right. Understand that. That'll be another show, but yeah, we'll have to do that one too. That.
So, if you don't believe that God exists, I love you. You are welcome. It's okay to question. I would say to you this, if it's because you just have never had an interaction with God, seek one. Seek one yourself. Seek one just asking. Use it as a scientific experiment. God is so amazing and wondrous that he'll answer your questions. And those myths are myths that I needed to overcome to be closer to God. You see, the church, not all churches, and not the only church, but a church that I experienced caused me to believe that I couldn't ask questions, that I had to just be quiet and do what they said, and seemed to be in conflict with what I thought God could be capable of, or the questions I had, And so if you don't know God at all, and if you're open to even as a scientific experience, to even as just It's there for you. And if you have had a relationship with God and you feel that God has literally broken your heart, either because you've been praying for something and it hasn't come to pass, or like the story that I shared, you thought you were doing the right thing. For heaven's sake, I did what you said, God. How did it turn out this way? Or some other malady has caused you to be heartbroken. I would just tell you that God loves you so much. And I know that's hard to hear and it seems trite and dumb, but God loves you and God can and will restore in full abundance everything that you feel you've lost in ways that will delight you and surprise you and fortify you in a way that you will be prepared to live the life you secretly dream about, the life you don't even pray about, the life that is so deep inside that it's almost a fantasy. That's how good God is. And finally, if you've been believing in God and for some reason, some person has hurt you, maybe a preacher has said the wrong thing. I know the pandemic caused a lot of things. Maybe your church started saying a message that didn't seem to resonate. I try to share this with people all the time. There is good and bad in all of us. We all fall short. So please, let's try not to mistake our humanity, our mistakes, for God's limitless, incredible, abundant mercy, love, grace, joy, because we can never compare. So if your church let you down, or if a preacher said something, or somebody did something wrong, or your congregant was whatever might have happened, please don't let that steal your relationship with God Almighty, with our Father. So, I could go on and on about this, but hopefully that helps some ways. And a way, because I like to share practical tips. We live in such a great age right now. So there's tons of ways we can access God very, very easily. I have no affiliation whatsoever, except that I use it every day. The YouVersion Bible app is phenomenal. Okay. It is absolutely FR to the double E free. And you can get, and let me tell you, some of us that are a little bit older, or let's say a little more seasoned, a little more, right? Back in the day, you used to have to buy a separate Bible if you wanted different translations. It could be a pricey. This is free, and every translation, there's narration, there's small snippets or scripture you could look at each day, so it can be easy. And another way I love to share God is with music. That's another thing you can access easily. So there's lots of really cool music that can bring and stir up wonderful sensations and help us to feel closer to God. Christian contemporary. There's even Christian rap now. So I'm just saying, okay? So hopefully you feel encouraged that you always have a through line, and you're always welcome with me as well. You're always welcome with me.
Wow, thank you so much. So I knew that this was going to be good, but wow, this was great. This is better than I thought. And you touched on so many things that I think are issues for so many of us. And by the way, I went to your website, which I'll post, and I got on your email list, and you actually sent me a playlist yesterday. So yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. And I haven't listened to it yet, but can't wait to. And the one thing that just really stands out in this is that so you had all of these difficult circumstances from the get-go, but you were still, there was in you this heart to seek God, and you were seeking him, and you would think that would have just been rewarded with all of this beautiful story and abundance and whatnot, but then it gets even more difficult. And so you're like, what are you doing up there? Are you awake up there, or are you up there? And I think so many of us have had that. I can remember just kind of screaming at God, which you really shouldn't do. But I was like, I am furious, and this is your fault. You could have changed it if you wanted to, and you didn't. What gives? what's up with that? And I expected to be like severely rebuked or something from a church perspective. That doesn't seem like anything you should ever say to God. And then all I felt was the warmest embrace after that. And I was in my car in the driveway when it happened, and I was so mad getting into the car, and I ended up driving out of that driveway just in perfect peace. So I'm thinking, even when you think you're doing your best, and it seems like God doesn't come through, and things get worse, that he's still seeking us and loving us more than we could possibly understand, and just don't lose faith in what he can still do. Just like Joseph. I keep thinking of Joseph. He comes to mind, and he has this brilliant dream of all these great things that are going to happen. And he's going to be the ruler, and everybody's going to bow down to him. And then he ends up getting thrown in a pit and sold as a slave and falsely accused and thrown in a dungeon. And it's like, really? So what about that dream you gave me? But yet God, he still is able to reach down and take him out of that prison into the palace in one afternoon, save two countries, and give him influence over the whole country. And it's like, wow, all of those things that you were learning in that perseverance have now come to fruition and are a blessing for all these other people. So it's wow. It's just amazing. So I got a feeling this might could be a series. So because I think we've got other things to talk about. But Teemaree, thank you so much for being here today, and for all that you shared about this, and for how it resonates so deeply with so many of us. And it just makes a difference, and you're a living testimony to having hope. When the bad comes and you try to do the best with it, and then the worst comes and you don't know what to make of it, and God still takes you out of that and puts you in a different place with a different influence and just a different spirit and a joy in him. So thank you so much for coming through all of that, for being here. And I know, to God be the glory, right? On all of that. But thank you so much for sharing what he's done with all of us, and your story too. And I just know that this is so impactful. I can't wait to watch it again and watch it with my wife. And because I mean, these things are just things that you've spoken to touch us all. So thank you so much again. Really appreciate you being here, and hope you and everybody watching have a wonderful rest of the day and a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. Much love to you. And I cannot wait to see you again. You are always welcome with me. And yes, you and I are going to talk again for sure. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday. And if whoever sees this, it's not the holiday, have a phenomenal new year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. See everybody soon.
Bye.